I saw what happened. That is what someone said. From a boat, on the water, near Horn Island, on July 4th, 2026. She said she witnessed an altercation involving Nolan Wells. She said it has stayed with her. She said she believes it is important. And then she went quiet. Until now. She said, and I want you to hear these exact words. I have not spoken publicly about this before, but I witnessed an altercation involving Nolan Wells from a boat nearby. What I saw has stayed with me, and I believe it's important information. I have provided or intend to provide my account to the appropriate investigators because Nolan's family deserves the truth. That statement is not from law enforcement. It is not from Ben Crump. It is not from the family. It surfaced online, and the moment it did, the internet lit on fire. But here's what nobody is slowing down to ask. Is she real? Is she credible? And if she is, what exactly did she see? Because right now, authorities have not made any arrests or named any suspects. The case is still open. And the official autopsy. Officials confirmed the Mississippi State Medical Examiner's Office completed their autopsy, but the findings have not been released publicly and will instead be presented to a Jackson County grand jury, along with other evidence gathered during the investigation.
Now, if this is true, if there is a witness who has a husband with her on the boat and they took a certain amount of video, it could change everything, especially if the video is time stamped. Straight out to veteran trial lawyer, defense attorney Philip Dubay joining me. He's joining us out of LA, formerly in the public defender's office. They try a ton of cases. Philip, first of all, has she turned it into police? She said she was. If she hasn't, I give her no credibility at all. Look, I want this to be true. Why? Because I want the video. I want to see the timestamp on the video. I want to see, was he still on Horn Island at 4:30 when his acquaintances on the Triton boat left? I want that video. And if she hasn't brought this forward to LE, law enforcement, then it means nothing to me. I mean, if I know a young man turns up dead in the water, and I know there's a controversy surrounding this, I mean, we know she knows that because she's gone online and posted it, then why not hand it over to police?
Agreed. And it should go to the grand jury for part of their investigation. But I got to tell you, if I were cross-examining her, should this even go to trial, the first question I'd ask her on that 4th of July, what she had been drinking. Before that video got activated, everybody would want to
put him up.
Drinking and smoking. You know how many people were partying?
Okay, man. Have you lost your mind? You defend criminal cases. I bet everybody you put on the stand has either been high, drunk, or worse during the altercation. Well, every witness is not a nun, a priest, or a virgin. Everybody on Horn Island was drinking, man. What are you talking about? I don't care if she took a drink. I want the video.
You want the truth, is what you want. You want the truth. And let's
and that would be the video. Yeah.
Remember, Nancy.
Okay.
Not consistent.
Brandon Tatum is joining us. So after all that, all you have to say is, was she drinking? That's your takeaway from that? Joining me is Brandon Tatum, former police officer, Tucson, now star of The Officer Tatum on YouTube, who famously has interviewed the acquaintances who all say they had nothing to do with it. Let's just put that out there. He's interviewed them extensively. I want to talk about not what you want to talk about, Brandon Tatum, which is they had nothing to do with this, because I met them and I believe them. So noted. Can we talk about a potential witness to an altercation? And she seems to suggest it was over Katie. Why? Don't know what the altercation was. Maybe it was, hey, leave her alone and get on the boat. Or leave her alone, she's my girlfriend. Or it could be anything. But if there is a witness placing Nolan seemingly in the water, I can't tell that, but having an argument with another person, a partier at Horn Island, that is significant. It could prove or disprove your friend's timeline?
Well, Nancy, I think that it's a big obstacle to climb here because I've never heard of this altercation whatsoever. Nobody that I've talked to have alluded that this altercation was real. And also Katie, whom I saw her text messages, she didn't even say this altercation occurred. What I will say is that if I was an investigator in this investigation, I want to hear that. I want to be able to compare that information to other things that we may have or other witness statements. But I don't think it's significant because it doesn't show if Nolan Wells was actually killed in that altercation. She's claiming that there was an altercation between him arguing with somebody else. There was a potential fight, but that doesn't get me to how did he drown? How did he get in the water? And how did he not recover and come home to his family? So I would take that into consideration. I would compare that to the other interviews that I've done, but I don't think it's significant whatsoever. However, I would be incredibly skeptical because there's no other statements that I've heard from anybody that comes even close to an altercation with Nolan Wells and others over a girl.
Number one, he's dead shortly after an alleged altercation with another male. We think over a woman. See, in my world, I put together both circumstantial and direct evidence. Direct evidence would be, for instance, DNA or a fingerprint. Circumstantial evidence is the timing of the alleged altercation and his death. Right?
Nancy,
so it's hard for me to believe that there's some kind of altercation on Horn Island just before he dies. And they were not connected. That's hard for me to believe that.
Well, Nancy, she's not saying he lost the fight. She's not saying that he got beat up. If you look at the autopsy, there's no clear signs of blunt force trauma to his face or any of the vital areas that could kill him. So it doesn't appear that there's any indication that he lost a fight, that there was enough trauma in this particular fight that would lead to his death. And when you look at the autopsy, there is no blunt force trauma to his face. There is no lacerations or damages to the back of his head. This is redness that was underneath the skin.
Oh, wait, are you looking at the screen? Because I'm looking at a big red mark on the back of his head.
Yeah, but this is underneath the skin. This is not a big red gash that's in the back of his head, which would be consistent with blunt force trauma. This is something that occurred underneath the skin that could have been from pooling of blood after his death.
A sealed autopsy, no arrests, a mystery witness, a claimed altercation. This is not just a missing person case that ended in tragedy. This is the story of what happens when witnesses hold information, and whether someone or something is keeping them from speaking. Stay with me, because the question we are sitting with today, and it is not the question most people are asking, is this. If someone witnessed a physical altercation involving Nolan Wells on Horn Island that afternoon, why did it take weeks for that to come out? And what does it mean for the investigation right now, tonight? We cover active cases here, cases where the evidence is still moving, where documents are still being filed, and witnesses are still deciding whether to come forward. If that's the kind of coverage you're looking for, you know what to do. Now let's get into it. Notice this. There is a pattern in this case. Whenever a new piece of information breaks the surface, it does not come from official channels first. It comes from online. It comes from TikTok. It comes from people posting to accounts, making statements, then claiming they were hacked. New social postings appeared to threaten to out someone as having a fight with Nolan on Horn Island. Shortly after that post, someone else claimed to have been hacked, and that the posting under her name was not real. So now we have two possibilities. Either there is a witness who genuinely saw something and is navigating how to come forward safely, or someone is using the chaos of this case, the online speculation, the grief, the rage, to insert a false narrative into the investigation. Both of those possibilities are serious, and right now, only one of them has been tested. Nancy Grace, who has been following this case aggressively, put it plainly. She said on air, if this is true, if there is a witness who has a husband with her on the boat, and they took a certain amount of video, it could change everything, especially if the video is time-stamped. That last part, especially if the video is time-stamped, hold that, because the timestamp is everything in this case. It always has been. Here is why. Metadata reviewed by TMZ. timestamped one piece of Horn Island footage at 2:23 p.m. on July 4th. That video pans across a scene packed with boats and partygoers before landing on a black man standing on the back deck of a vessel. While the clip never captures the man's face, TMZ noted that he's wearing trunks matching the color of those Nolan had on in the widely circulated July 4 photo taken with his friends. And then, per GPS data cited by TMZ, the boat carrying Nolan's friends departed the island around 4:30 p.m., roughly 2 hours after that footage was captured, returning to the Mississippi mainland without him. No witnesses have publicly come forward, reporting a sighting of Nolan after that point. So officially, the last confirmed window is somewhere between 2:23 in the afternoon and 4:30, roughly 2 hours. At least 2 witnesses who were interviewed by law enforcement say they saw Nolan on the island after the boat headed back to the mainland. But publicly, the window after 4:30 is dark. No confirmed sightings, no confirmed contact, nothing. And now someone is claiming she saw an altercation from her boat in that window. Think about what that means. If her account is credible, and that is a significant if, it does not just add to the timeline. It potentially changes the entire shape of what investigators are working with, because right now the official lean, at least publicly, is drowning. Authorities have said they currently believe Wells drowned, though the state's autopsy remains incomplete pending toxicology results. But the family's independent autopsy tells a different story. An independent autopsy presented by attorney Ben Crump and conducted by Dr. Roger Mitchell lists Wells's cause and manner of death as undetermined, citing missing organs and neck tissue, red discoloration on his head, and the inability to rule out foul play. Missing organs, neck tissue, red discoloration on the head. Dr. Mitchell is a forensic pathologist. He is not a family advocate. He is a scientist. And when a scientist of his level puts the phrase, "cannot rule out foul play" on paper, that is not language chosen lightly. Now layer the new witness onto that. Someone claiming to have seen a physical confrontation on that island, in that window, the same window where the official record goes dark. Does that look like coincidence? Or does it look like something the investigation needs to answer before a grand jury does? Nancy Grace has said directly, "I've got a big problem with the Life 360 and the phone data all not jiving. I could see it being a few blocks off, but not the discrepancy his mother is describing. I'm not buying that." And she is not alone in that. Grace has questioned conflicting Life 360 and phone data, and mutually exclusive witness accounts about his final hours on Horn Island. Conflicting phone data, mutually exclusive witness accounts. Those are not small cracks in a story. Those are structural failures. And they matter, because this is not a case where someone vanished in a remote location with no witnesses, no footage, no documentation. This happened on one of the busiest boating weekends of the year. TMZ reported that the footage was captured on Mississippi's Horn Island at 11:17 a.m. on July 4th, before the area even became crowded. By afternoon, there were boats everywhere, people filming. Which brings us directly to the question at the center of this new development. If this witness was on a boat nearby, and she says she was, then who else was on boats nearby? Who else has footage they have not turned over? And why, more than 7 weeks after Nolan Wells was found dead, is this the moment someone decides to speak? Let's go deeper. The altercation claim did not come out of a press conference. It did not come from law enforcement. It came from a post, and then another post, and then a claim of being hacked. Nancy Grace brought in former court-appointed defense attorney Philip Dubé to walk through what this means legally. Veteran trial lawyer and defense attorney Philip Dubé, formerly of the Los Angeles County Public Defender's Office, a man who has tried a significant number of cases, was brought in directly. The question Grace put to him was sharp. Has she turned the footage over to police? Grace asked directly, "Philip, first of all, has she turned it into police?" The answer was, she said she was. She said she was, not that she did. Not that it was received. Not that a detective logged it. She said she was going to. That gap matters, because there is a significant difference between a witness who has handed evidence to a detective and a witness who is posting about it online. One of those is part of an investigation, the other is part of a narrative. And right now, we do not know which one this is. In her statement, she said, "I have not spoken publicly about this before, but I witnessed an altercation involving Nolan Wells from a boat nearby. What I saw has stayed with me, and I believe it's important information. I have provided or intend to provide my account to the appropriate investigators because Nolan's family deserves the truth. Out of respect for the ongoing investigation, I won't speculate beyond what I personally observed." Now read that again carefully. I have provided or intend to provide. That is two possibilities in one sentence. Either she already gave the statement, or she plans to. That ambiguity is not accidental. People who have already given a formal statement to law enforcement do not hedge about it in the past tense. They say, "I already spoke to investigators, full stop." But here is the other side of that, and caveat discipline requires we name it. There are real, documented reasons witnesses in this case might be afraid to come forward. According to a probable cause affidavit, one defendant made multiple calls to two witnesses, threatening to kill them and their families. He said he knew where they lived and told one witness he would cut them up and put them into a suitcase. 3 people have been charged with threatening witnesses in the investigation surrounding the death of Nolan Wells, in 3 different instances. 3 separate people, 3 separate instances, all charged with threatening witnesses or officials tied to this case. None of the 3 appear to know Wells, his family, or the boating group, or be part of the investigation. The threats came amid rampant speculation and scrutiny of the investigation, deepened in part by uncertainty surrounding Wells's final hours, distrust of law enforcement, and the state's long history of racist violence. So now you have to hold 2 things at once. A witness who says she saw something, and an environment where witnesses are being called and told, "We know where you live. We will kill your family. We will cut you up and put you in a suitcase." That is not background noise. That is the context inside which any witness in this case is making the decision to speak or stay silent. And if someone with real, first-hand information has been afraid to come forward, that does not make her dishonest. It makes her a human being, operating inside a case that has become genuinely dangerous to witness. What would you have done if you were on that boat, if you saw something, if you drove home on July 4th with that image in your head, and then the case exploded nationally, and people started getting death threats, and you have a family, and your name is not public? Would you have posted about it? Would you have gone to the sheriff's office? Or would you have stayed very, very quiet and hoped someone else said it first? That is the psychology this investigation is sitting inside right now. Notice this. Attorney Ben Crump, at a press conference, mentioned a video of an alleged argument on the island circulating on social media, where he said Nolan could be heard saying, "Give me my freaking phone." "What are you freaking doing?" When asked by a reporter how they knew it was Nolan's voice, Crump said multiple people identified it as his. However, on July 13th, Trayston Shepard, a friend of Nolan's, came forward and told ABC News that it was actually him yelling in the video. Now stop there. That is a significant correction. The voice on a circulating video, the video Crump referenced at a press conference as evidence of an argument on the island, was later identified as someone else, someone who was there, someone in the group. The Jackson County Sheriff's Office has not confirmed the existence of a fight on the island, but they did ask anyone with video or images of an alleged altercation to reach out. The Sheriff's Office used that phrase themselves. Alleged altercation. They did not say there was no altercation. They asked for footage of one. That is not the language of a department that is certain nothing happened. That is the language of a department that is investigating whether something did. And now, weeks after that request, someone surfaces online claiming she has footage, claiming her husband was there, claiming she saw it. And the question of whether any of that is real is something only investigators can answer right now. But here is what we know for certain. Civil rights attorney Ben Crump recently announced that audio engineers would examine a sea tow distress call made from a boat near Horn Island that afternoon. TMZ enhanced the audio of Nolan's friend's frantic call for help when their boat was sinking, and people believe you can hear someone saying, "Is he dead?" Sources on the boat, however, have told people around them the audio is only panic from the boat sinking, and that the call was made when one of the guys, Wyatt Pyron, called Sea Tow, a private tow service. So we have enhanced audio with disputed interpretation. We have a sealed autopsy. We have a claimed witness who may or may not have turned her account over to investigators. We have phone data that Nancy Grace says does not jive. And we have 3 people already charged for threatening witnesses and officials in this case. This is an active investigation, and it is moving. But here's what I need you to understand before we go any deeper. The witness claim, right now, has not been verified by law enforcement. It has not been confirmed by Crump's team. It surfaced online, it drew national attention, and it immediately became contested. Whether it is genuine testimony or whether it is someone exploiting a grieving family's case for attention, that is the question investigators and the public are wrestling with right now. What we can say is this. Wells's parents continue pressing for clear answers about what happened, alongside high-profile supporters including Nancy Grace, Ben Crump, Al Sharpton, Tyler Perry, Byron Allen, and Colin Kaepernick. And the family, through all of it, has stayed focused on one thing. His mother, Christine Wells Wansley, said, "There's so many people out in the public asking all of these questions, but the only question that we have is, what happened to our son?" So let's talk about what this witness actually said. Not what people are saying she said. What she actually said. Word for word. While I was on the boat near the area, I witnessed an altercation involving Nolan Wells and several other individuals. I saw what appeared to be an argument that escalated after there was a dispute involving Nolan's phone. I heard Nolan yelling for his phone to be returned. The argument continued after the group reached shore, and I observed a physical fight involving Nolan and multiple people. Stop there. Read that again slowly. She is not describing a shouting match. She is not describing a tense moment that passed. She is describing a physical fight involving multiple people, and she says she observed a young woman telling them to stop. Now here is where it gets important. She said, "At that point, I left the area because the situation had appeared to be getting worse. I did not remain long enough to witness what happened afterward. Everything beyond what I personally observed would be speculation, so I cannot honestly say what occurred after I left." She saw a physical fight. She left. She does not know what happened next. That is a very specific statement, and it is the kind of specificity that either makes a witness credible or makes a fabricated statement convincing. Those are 2 different things. And right now, the investigation has to figure out which one this is. Notice this. She then said she messaged one of the individuals that she saw. She said, "Hey, I just want to say I was a passenger on another boat, and I saw the argument between you guys." She contacted one of the people she saw in the fight, directly. Before going to law enforcement, before going public. Think about the mechanics of that for a second. If you witnessed a physical altercation involving someone who later turned up dead, your first call is not to one of the people you saw fighting with him. Your first call is to a detective, or at minimum, to an attorney. The fact that she reached out to one of the participants directly, before doing anything else, is something any serious investigator is going to want to explain. It does not make her a liar, but it is a detail that changes the shape of this. Because now the question is not just what did she see, but what did she do with it? And who else knew about it before the rest of us did? This is where we need a legal lens on the table. Philip Dubé, veteran trial lawyer and former court-appointed defense attorney out of the Los Angeles County Public Defender's Office, was brought directly into the Nancy Grace conversation on this. The question put to him was pointed. Has she turned the footage over to police? His response was measured. She said she was. And Dubé addressed the bigger issue. He made clear that the credibility of any witness in a case like this, particularly one who surfaces online before going to law enforcement, has to be evaluated against several factors. The timing of when they came forward, the consistency of their account, and whether their statement aligns with or contradicts evidence investigators already have. Right now, none of that has been publicly confirmed or denied. About 60 witnesses have been interviewed as investigators piece together Nolan Wells's final hours on Horn Island. 60 witnesses. And yet, this account, which claims to describe a physical fight involving multiple people, has not been publicly addressed by the sheriff's office as something they have already collected. That silence is not proof of anything, but it is something to pay attention to. The district attorney says evidence will stay out of public view until the grand jury reviews it first, a move prosecutors say is meant to protect the integrity of the investigation. So here is the framework we are operating inside. Evidence is sealed, the autopsy is sealed, and a grand jury, not a press conference, not a social media post, will be the body that decides whether any of this rises to the level of criminal charges. That is the institution that matters here, not the comment section, not TikTok. A grand jury has the power to subpoena witnesses who might be refusing to talk. Let that land. Subpoena power. The grand jury does not need someone to decide they are ready to speak. It can compel testimony, which means every witness, including the one who said, "I have provided or intend to provide," can be required to sit in a room, raise their right hand, and answer questions under oath, with consequences if they do not. That changes the dynamic entirely. Online statements carry no legal weight. Grand jury testimony does. And if investigators believe this witness has relevant information, her window of choosing whether or not to speak may already be closing. Now let's talk about what the body evidence is actually telling us, because that is where this case either proves or disproves the altercation theory. The examination, performed by forensic pathologist Dr. Roger Mitchell, concluded that both the cause and manner of death remain undetermined, pending further investigation. Crump said the report could not rule out foul play and identified several limitations because organs and portions of Wells's neck had already been removed during the state's initial autopsy, preventing Mitchell from conducting a complete examination. Missing organs. Neck tissue removed. Those are not editorial choices by Dr. Mitchell. Those are documented limitations in what he was able to examine, and the significance of missing neck tissue in a case where someone is now claiming to have witnessed a physical fight, that is not a small detail. Because the neck is where you look when you are trying to determine whether someone was choked, whether someone was restrained, whether the manner of death involved force applied by another person. And in this case, that tissue is gone. Dr. Mitchell could not examine what was not there, and what was not there was taken during the state's initial autopsy. Whether that is standard procedure or something that needs explaining, that is a question the grand jury is going to have in front of them. A newly completed independent analytical review of photographs, videos, GPS coordinates, and witness accounts concludes that the available evidence still leaves a material gap in the timeline between Wells' last independently corroborated sighting and his recovery. Forensic audio specialists are reviewing the complete CTO emergency call from July 4th, while ocean engineering experts are examining how Wells's body ultimately came to be recovered near the northwestern tip of Horn Island. Crump said, "We want to know how is that possible with the oceanic tides. You've got low tides and high tides, so it's not adding up." Attorney Eric Hertz said discussions also continue regarding a joint forensic examination of cell phones connected to the case. An inspection he expects would include the FBI if it proceeds. Two separate tracks of forensic investigation. Ocean engineering on one side, phone forensics on the other, and at the center of both, the same question. How did his body end up where it ended up? And do the physics of that island, that water, those tides, do they support drowning, or do they suggest something else? Does this look like an accident, or does it look like something that needed explaining? A former FBI agent says a review of surveillance footage, witness accounts, Coast Guard communications, and the area's riptide conditions point toward a tragic accident rather than foul play. That assessment from former FBI agent Jennifer Coffindaffer is not nothing. She is a credentialed professional, and the prosecution's theory, if there is one, has not yet been stated publicly. Whether a jury sees it the same way remains to be seen. But notice this. The former FBI agent's assessment was made before this witness surfaced publicly, before the altercation claim, before the specific description of a physical fight involving multiple people and a dispute over a phone. New information changes the analysis. That is how investigations work. The question is whether this new information is real or noise. Remember what we planted at the top. The detail that Ben Crump referenced at his press conference. Audio, he said, was Nolan yelling, "Give me my freaking phone. What are you freaking doing?" And then, the correction. That it was actually a friend's voice, not Nolan's. Now this witness surfaces and says, the altercation started as a dispute over Nolan's phone, and she says she heard Nolan yelling for his phone to be returned. Two separate accounts, both centered on a phone. One of those accounts was corrected, the other has not been verified. Nancy Grace put it directly, both cannot be true. Those cannot mutually exist in truth. They're mutually exclusive. He can't go with them and stay with her on Horn Island. I don't know who's lying, but somebody's lying right there. That was Grace referencing the conflicting witness accounts about where Nolan went after a certain point. But the logic applies here too. Mutually exclusive accounts cannot both be true. And right now, the investigation has multiple accounts that do not line up, and only one body of evidence that can settle it. Two confirmed witnesses say they saw Nolan Wells on the island around 6 p.m. The Triton left around 4:30. So officially, there are already two confirmed witnesses who place Nolan on the island after the boat left. He was still there. He was seen. And then, nothing. No confirmed contact after that point. No confirmed sighting. And a body found 2 days later near the northwestern tip of the island. What would you have done if you were the last person who saw him? If you watched him from a boat nearby? If you saw a fight break out? Would you have called 911 that night? Would you have gone home and convinced yourself it was fine? Would you have spent weeks wondering? Would you have stayed silent until someone online threatened to expose you? These are not rhetorical questions. The psychology of witnesses in violent incidents is documented. People freeze. People minimize what they saw. People convince themselves someone else called it in. And in an environment where witnesses were receiving death threats, the psychology of silence is not hard to understand. But understanding it is different from accepting it. More than a month after the body of Nolan Wells was found along the shoreline of a Mississippi barrier island, two friends believed to have traveled out to Horn Island with Wells returned there, Warren Hudson and Jax Patelo, in an effort to investigate the case themselves. Attorneys for the three friends, Warren Hudson, Jax Patelo, and Morgan Seymour, said they had nothing to do with Wells's death and wanted to learn the truth of what happened. They went back to the island. That is a significant decision, publicly, with attorneys, on the record. Whether that is a statement of innocence or something else, that is for investigators to assess. But it is a move that puts them squarely in the frame of this case, at a moment when a new witness has surfaced, claiming to have seen a fight involving multiple people on that same island. After the investigation is finished, Jackson County District Attorney Angel Myers McElrath will let a grand jury decide whether any potential charges are warranted. This case is being treated as a priority, the district attorney said. Upon the conclusion of the investigation, the findings will go before a grand jury, which is our standard operating procedure for deaths that are not natural deaths. That is the legal status tonight. The case is active. The grand jury is coming. No charges have been filed in connection with Wells's death. No suspects have been named. The autopsy is sealed, and a witness who claims to have seen a physical altercation is navigating, either genuinely or not, whether and how to formally share what she knows. The entire Nolan Wells investigation will be handed over to a grand jury once the primary groundwork is complete. This means regular citizens will soon review the evidence and decide if criminal charges are warranted. Regular citizens, not a prosecutor making the call alone, not a sheriff deciding what rises to the level of criminal. 12 people in a room, with subpoena power, with the sealed autopsy, with the phone evidence, with 60 witness interviews, deciding whether what happened to Nolan Wells was a tragedy or a crime. And that matters because the family has never asked for anyone to rush to a conclusion. They have asked for something far more specific than that. If we're going to get answers about what truly happened to Nolan, it is going to be on the public to force the hand to get the truth that Nolan's parents, family, friends, and community deserve. We have been through enough suspicious deaths as Black Americans in all-white environments to know that without constant pressure from the masses, These stories just become another one in a history of our pain. However, when public figures use their platform to hold people accountable and press the issue hard, we just might get closer to the truth. And the community has not let this go quiet. Gulfport residents marched for Nolan Wells in blistering heat to demand answers and transparency. In blistering heat. Not in front of cameras, not for a content cycle. They walked, in the Mississippi summer, for a kid who was 18 years old. Colin Kaepernick paid for a second independent autopsy to be conducted. Tyler Perry took care of Wells's funeral expenses. Those are not symbolic gestures. Those are financial commitments to a family that should not have had to fundraise to find out what happened to their son. Nolan Wells was an 18-year-old college football player from Ocean Springs, Mississippi. A healthy 18-year-old college football player who headed out on a boat with friends to celebrate the 4th of July. That is who he was on the morning of July 4th. That is the last ordinary day his family ever had. And his mother, Christine Wells Wansley, has not spoken in rage. She has not made this about anyone else. She has stayed fixed on the only thing that has ever mattered to her. There's so many people out in the public asking all of these questions. But the only question that we have is, what happened to our son? That is where this case lives, inside that question. And tonight, with a witness claiming she saw an altercation, with a sealed autopsy headed to a grand jury, with phone forensics still being examined, with ocean engineering still mapping tides and body placement, with 60 witnesses interviewed and the record still showing a material gap, that question has not been answered. Jackson County Sheriff John Ledbetter said investigators are committed to giving Wells's family a complete investigation. Both an official and an independent investigation are underway, with the district attorney saying the findings will eventually be presented to a grand jury. Whether that commitment is enough, whether what goes before that grand jury is sufficient to deliver the truth, that is what the family is waiting for. That is what this channel is going to keep watching. We will be here when the grand jury meets. We will be here when the phone forensics come back. We will be here if that witness makes a formal, on-record statement that investigators can actually work with. Because until the question Christine Wells Wansley asked gets answered, this is not over. Now that you've heard the altercation witness's full statement, and how it lines up or doesn't line up with what we already know, I want to know what stands out to you most. Drop it in the comments. Not a verdict, just what you noticed, because sometimes the audience catches things that matter. Subscribe so you don't miss the next update. This one is still moving,